Have you ever wondered how a group of merchants ended up ruling a vast subcontinent like India? Today, we delve into the captivating story of the East India Company, initially established for trading purposes. Yet, intriguingly, this band of traders gradually morphed into an authoritative force, exercising political control over vast territories of India. They transitioned from mere merchants into rulers, a transformation as dramatic as it was unexpected. So, let's embark on a journey to understand how the East India Company transformed from a commercial entity into a powerful governing body. The East India Company was not always a political power. It all started in the year 1600 when Queen Elizabeth I granted a royal charter to a group of about 200 merchants known as the Governor and Company of Merchants of London, trading into the East Indies. Their initial objective was purely commercial, with a focus on the lucrative spice trade. India, the land of exotic spices and fine textiles, was a major draw for these early traders. The company established its first factory, as the trading posts were called, in the town of Machilipatnam on the Coromandel coast of the Bay of Bengal. This was followed by more factories along the extensive coastline of the Indian subcontinent. From the start, the East India Company was not just interested in buying spices and textiles. They also sought to establish a monopoly over trade, and they did so by securing exclusive trading rights with local rulers. This commercial venture, however, was not without its challenges. There was fierce competition from other European powers, particularly the Dutch and the Portuguese, who had established their presence in India much earlier. Amidst this backdrop of trade and competition, the East India Company started to evolve. Their interests began to extend beyond trade, and they started to look at India not just as a source of goods, but also as a land of opportunity. So, how did this trading company start to gain political control? The answer lies in the declining power of the Mughal Empire. As the Mughal Empire weakened, the East India Company seized its opportunity. This marked the beginning of a significant shift in the balance of power in the Indian subcontinent. The Mughal Empire, once a formidable force that held sway over the vast lands of India, was in a state of decline. It was the 17th century, and the glorious reign of Emperor Aurangzeb was coming to an end. The empire was riddled with internal conflicts, political instability, and economic woes. This decline created a power vacuum, a void that was waiting to be filled. Notably, the East India Company, a British entity initially formed for pursuing trade with the East Indies, was already well established in India. It had built trade posts in key regions like Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta. But as the Mughal Empire started to crumble, the company saw more than just a trading opportunity. It sensed a chance to step into the shoes of the declining Mughals. The company began to extend its influence beyond the confines of their trading posts. It wasn't about spices, silk, or indigo anymore. It was about control, authority, and dominion. They began to assert their political power, making alliances with local rulers, sometimes through diplomacy and at other times through force. They started collecting taxes, maintaining armies, and administering justice, tasks traditionally performed by a sovereign power. The company's rise wasn't without resistance. There were struggles, conflicts, and battles. But with its superior military technology, efficient administrative structure, and the support of the British Crown, the company managed to quash most of these challenges. And so, within a span of a few decades, the East India Company, a commercial enterprise, had morphed into a political entity. It was no longer just a foreign trading company. It had become a colonizing power, ruling large parts of India. By the mid-18th century, the East India Company had established itself as a significant political power. It had effectively exploited the decline of the Mughal Empire and had stepped into the void left by them, marking the beginning of a new era in the history of India. The Battle of Plassey marked a turning point in the East India Company's quest for control. This monumental battle, fought in the scorching summer of 1757, was a clash between the mighty East India Company and the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah. The setting? A small village named Plassey on the banks of the Bhagirathi River. The Nawab, with an army of about 50,000, faced the company's army of just 3,000. But numbers can be deceiving. The company had more than numbers on its side. It had cunning and treachery. The company's commander, Robert Clive, had managed to secure the allegiance of Mir Jafar, the Nawab's commander-in-chief, who had his own ambitions for the throne. As the battle commenced, Mir Jafar's forces held back, refusing to engage in the fight. This treachery left the Nawab's forces outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The battle didn't last long. The Nawab's forces, betrayed by their own, crumbled under the onslaught. The East India Company emerged victorious, marking a significant shift in the power dynamics of the region. The victory at Plassey, more than any other single event, paved the way for the East India Company's political dominance in India. The company replaced Siraj-ud-Dawla with Mir Jafar, creating a puppet ruler who served their interests. This strategy of manipulating local power structures became a blueprint for the company's future conquests, allowing them to control vast territories with a relatively small force. But the Battle of Plassey was more than a military victory. It was a statement of intent, a declaration of the company's ambition to rule, not just trade. It marked the beginning of a new era where a commercial enterprise held sway over the destiny of a nation. And so, the Battle of Plassey was not merely a battle. It was a pivotal moment in history, a turning point that set the stage for the rise of one of the most powerful entities of the time, the East India Company. With the victory at Plassey, the East India Company's path to ruling India was all but assured. By the early 19th century, the East India Company had effectively taken over India. It was not a sudden shift, but rather a gradual process that unfolded over several decades. The company's influence grew in tandem with its territorial acquisitions. Its power was not just economic, but also political, as it had its own army and administrative units. The company's control was not limited to the coastal regions. It extended deep into the heart of the Indian subcontinent. Its reach was so vast that it even dictated the internal affairs of the princely states. One of the significant strategies implemented by the company was the doctrine of lapse. Introduced by Lord Dalhousie, the then Governor-General of India, in the mid-19th century, this policy allowed the company to annex any Indian princely state that lacked a natural heir. The doctrine was a masterstroke, enabling the East India Company to seize control of vast territories without resorting to outright warfare. The states of Satara, Jaitpur, Sambalpur, and Nagpur, among others, fell prey to this doctrine. Their annexation underscored the company's increasing dominance. It was a clear signal that the company was not a mere trading entity, but a political power to be reckoned with. The company's expansion, however, was not met without resistance. There were numerous uprisings and rebellions, but these were systematically quashed by the company's formidable military force. The company's rule was marked by a blend of coercion and diplomacy, with the latter often serving as a smokescreen for the former. The East India Company's takeover of India was not just a territorial conquest. It was also a cultural and social transformation, as it brought with it Western ideas and practices that forever changed the landscape of the Indian subcontinent. By the 1850s, the East India Company ruled most of India, marking a significant chapter in the history of the Indian subcontinent. The East India Company's rise to power in India was no ordinary event. It was a saga marked by strategy, conflict, and a series of unexpected turns that would forever change the course of history. The seeds of this monumental chapter were sown with the formation of the company. A group of merchants, backed by royal charter, embarked on a journey to the east, driven by the allure of spices and the promise of wealth. Little did they know, they were setting the stage for an era of unprecedented political and economic influence. The company's rise to power was not an overnight phenomenon. It took years of careful planning, negotiation, and the occasional show of force. They gradually established trading posts, fortresses, and eventually entire cities, becoming an integral part of India's economic fabric. Their influence stretched far and wide, shaping the dynamics of trade and politics in the region. Among their many strategic moves, the Battle of Plassey stands out as a turning point, a carefully orchestrated conflict that saw the company's private army take on the powerful Nawab of Bengal. The outcome? A decisive victory that paved the way for the company's dominance over the Indian subcontinent. And then came the final takeover, a period that saw the company transform from a commercial entity into a political powerhouse. The company's rule was marked by significant developments, but it also brought with it a host of challenges and controversies that continue to be debated by historians and scholars today. The story of the East India Company serves as a reminder of the complex and often surprising nature of history, a tale of ambition, strategy, and power. It's a testament to the intricate web of events that shape our world. And as we delve deeper into the past, we realize that history is not just about dates and events. It's about understanding the forces that drive change and the lessons we can draw from them.